guests on today's Big Blend Radio Show are our hosts, Bill and Maureen Elliot. They're the innkeepers and owners of Tuxedo Park STL Bed and Breakfast in Webster Groves, which is right outside St. Louis downtown, and it's, well, say St. Louis region of Missouri. It's a former church that is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. We're excited to be airing our show today live from this bed and breakfast. It is beautiful. There's 4 rooms upstairs. There's amazing space downstairs. There's decks. It's right in this historic neighborhood where you can go on architectural walks and learn about the founding of the neighborhood. It's just really cool. So you've got to come out here. So go to the website, Tuxedo-Park-STL.com. But I want to welcome Maureen first. Ladies first. Maureen, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great tonight, Lisa.
Hey, it's good to have you on the show, even though you're just downstairs from us, right? It's 60 seconds of separation, right? You're right downstairs from us, and glad to have you on the show. Thank you for having us here. I just want to ask, are we behaving ourselves enough?
You are behaving yourselves, yes. You were like little church mice last night.
We're going to have to amp it up then.
Well, that's because we got lost in Mark Twain Forest, and we had an amazing journey doing that, and it's not that far from you, actually, Mark Twain National Forest and Big Spring and all those springs. So, like, even guests staying here right outside St. Louis, if you've got the downtown, of course, you've got Gateway Arch National Park, and you've also got Ulysses S. Grant National Historic Site, also part of our national park system. But you're not that far from the Ozark National Scenic Riverways or Mark Twain National Forest from here. I don't think. It was easy getting here once I turned around.
Right. It's a very simple drive. So the nice part about staying in the St. Louis region, you can do, when it's not COVID, you can do all of your cultural outings. You can see the Art Museum and the History Museum and the Science Museum and go to the St. Louis Zoo and the Family Entertainment Center at the Union Station. And there's so many, many citywide activities. And then if the Cardinals are playing or the St. Louis Blues are playing, the music scene, we have multiple theaters. So the city itself offers amazing cultural institutions to take part in, and we're basically a few minutes from just about any of those items. And then if you want a lovely day outing, you can hit the wine regions of the Missouri River, and you can hit the wine regions along the Mississippi River. So the 2 favorite spots are Herman and Augusta along the Missouri, and then St. Genevieve along the Mississippi. But there are several wine trails in Missouri, but those 3 are all within an hour's drive of the city.
Wow. Are you kidding me? Like, I remember having Stonehill Winery, I think it's Stonehill, on our show, like, I'm going to say like 10 years ago. And I believe that, we've done interviews about, Corey Solomon was on our show about 2 years ago, talking about the wineries of, Missouri. And they're actually one of the most historic wineries, and I think, is it Stonehill? Am I saying the right one? Stonehill?
There is one called Stonehill, yes.
Stonehill. So they have one of, and I remember this from their interviews, and having them, they sent over, it was right when it was about 2008, 2009, actually, when we started our shows, they sent us over some of their wine. We tasted it. It was amazing. And there was this Nebbiolo. And I remember that we interviewed the winemaker. I mean, this is way back when. And that's why we do radio shows, man. It's so cool. You can connect with people around the world. And he was talking about how they actually have part of, I think it's a Nebbiolo, I really do, where that grapevine was there pre-Civil War, and it was there. And then, of course, Prohibition happened, and they managed to keep that vineyard still, that one portion is still historically there from before Prohibition, which I think is pretty amazing. And I found out that Missouri wines, one of our historic wines of the entire country, comes from here. It's Missouri.
Well, the even most amazing story than that is we have native vines here that are very hardy, just because the climate can be so harsh hot and harsh cold. And when there was a blight in Europe, they needed new vineyard roots to graft onto. And so they actually took them from the state of Missouri and basically restarted the wine industry in Western Europe because their roots had all been decimated by disease or by an insect. I can't recall which it was, but our roots were put into the ground, and then they grafted their grape varietal on top of them, which is how you usually move the grapes around the vineyards through grafting.
Well, check this out. Check this out.
So
this is cool. This is cool history here. So we got wine. You've got an amazing, village here. Can I call Webster-Groves a village? Because it kind of feels like that.
It's like a Norman Rockwell town. I can't really explain it any other way.
That's a good way to say it.
On 4th of July, all of those beautiful porches you took a walk by today all have their red, white, blue bunting out. There is a parade through the city. One little trivia of this city is everybody wants a chair along the parade route. And so it's documented. Now we have to have an ordinance on how early you're allowed to place your chair on the street, because you will start seeing on June 15th chairs emerging up in the downtown area. It's like, what are the chairs for? And then we finally started catching on. People are scoping out. But to scope out the best chair spot, you just have to keep starting early and earlier. And finally they said, okay, no, July 1st is the earliest you can do a chair on the street.
Oh,
it's
that's
funny. It is.
That
It
is
is
funny.
Well, the whole neighborhood, I mean, you're walking through this, you've got a lot of Queen Anne's going on, like a lot of Queen Anne architecture, but different styles too. And the fall colors, I mean, we went today, we went through Blackburn Park, and we went through Sculpture Park, which was really cute. It's small, but it's really whimsical and interesting, and it kind of leads you into the downtown district. And I need to get a photograph still, because the downtown is so cool and beautiful. And they talk about it being an art town. There were flags up about it being an art community. So the arts seem to be very important. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the architecture, Maureen, with the arts.
Absolutely. It's just amazing to stop and look at these different houses. There's just not a cookie cutter situation at all. Each house has lovely little details, out of wood, out of shingles, those cute little eyebrow windows that, of course, aren't put into properties any longer. There's just really charming aspects of a walk, and we still can walk and see new things.
Yeah,
there's just
for sure.
So much.
There was that one house that has like little sundials and like little star sunbursts. I don't know how to explain it, but like there are these details that I think that we kind of miss in modern architecture, and yet what you have in this beautiful bed and breakfast is this, old history, and it's history of Missouri, your history of your neighborhood, with it being a church, obviously all these congregations coming through. But at the same time, you have modern amenities. You come in, and the rooms are spacious, clean. We're doing a radio show from our rooms. I mean, this is, so I think this is an interesting balance you've created. And with that, I want to bring Bill on, because Bill is sitting there patiently waiting for us to talk to him. So, Bill, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Bill.
I'm doing okay. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for joining us, and thank you for what you've done for your community with, remodeling this building, this incredible building, which was, I think, it's more than one building, right, at some point. I want to touch on, like, the history of this with you, but also the fact that it's you that kind of, you kind of twisted Maureen's arm, or, like, kind of duped her into falling in love with this building. Like, you snuck her in here, right? It has to do with a tape measure, and she came to help you, and next thing you know, you have a bed and breakfast?
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The previous owner of the building asked me to tour the building to develop costs for doing the renovations. I'm an architect and a general contractor that does historic restoration and adaptive reuse for buildings. And he asked me to go through the building to figure out what it would cost to upgrade it for another residence, for someone else. And when I walked through it the first time, I thought it was a pretty unique layout. So we put some costs together for doing the renovations for the building for a whole different use, and didn't hear anything for several months. And they asked me to go back through and figure out what it would cost to start at the oldest section of the two buildings, which were joined together, and tear it all completely down.
Ooh.
What?
And so, yeah.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. And probably the most unique portion is what they were talking about tearing down. And when they asked me what the cost would be, I said, well, I need to go back over and do some additional measuring, thinking about the fact that it was a very unique style of building. It's called an Akron gathering room, the original portion, which is a big giant pie shape. And at that time, I wanted Maureen to see it because we worked together, and I thought it was very unique. And if it was going to disappear, I thought it'd be nice for her to have a look at it. And when we walked through, one of my original thoughts was, boy, this would make a great bed and breakfast. And I swear we weren't here 5 minutes before she said the same thing. So
wow.
Cool.
And
wow.
So we talked about it for a while and went to the owner and said, hey, if we can get the conditional use permit, and would you take this price for the building? So instead of tearing it down, we saved it.
Yeah, good for you.
That is awesome. I mean, that's the thing. Nancy and I have been traveling to all these bed and breakfasts this year, like really more than we've ever done on our Love Your Parks tour. And you guys are all saving land and history, and not just saving and preserving it, but interpreting it. And when people come here, they can live in that. You're living, whether it's 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights a week, 2 weeks, you're living in history. Do you feel like that, Bill, too? I mean, having worked so much on this building, there's a lot of labor of love that went into this. Do you feel like you're living in history?
Oh, of course. I mean, it's a very unique concept of what the building was originally built for. It was built as a gathering center and a gathering room and a meeting place. And as we did the renovations work from the original building was built in 1895, and then the sanctuary addition was put on starting in 1906 and finished in 1908. So it's over 100 years old itself. But the original stained glass is still in. It's got quite a history, and our goal as we developed the bed and breakfast was to create another gathering area, another community space that people could come in and relax and enjoy and spend time visiting and be together.
Well, there's a special warmth when you come into this building. There's something I don't know, for me personally, I looked at the stained glass and it just automatically relaxed. There's just something, I don't know, just feels wholesome.
The tinting of the glass, it really does contribute to the feel of the space, the ambiance and the lighting in the space. It's more of an art glass than the traditional painted stained glass. Colors are very earth tone, and then the design of the colors and the interior decorations were more earth tones and greens and browns and warm colors, so that you've got a much more restive feeling, and everything blends together.
I looked at the stained glass. I was photographing it this morning. It looks like they have scenes of mountains and snow, and there's all these different scenes. And it's like, wow, what when you think back to stained glass times and the original creation of them, there's way back when there was lead, and then sometimes the lead separates and everything. And I'm amazed at what you have with the stained glass, because a lot of times you don't get to see the originals with stained glass.
Well, this stained glass was in pretty bad shape, and we actually had all of the stained glass removed and repaired and stabilized and brought back and reinstalled.
Oh my gosh, you guys! So pretty penny spent. Like when I say labor of love too, a lot of sweat equity. Like,
it was. I mean, we did. My construction crews were the leads on the project. We did the entire massive renovation in 18 months. which was pretty incredible. We counted 45 people here working one day. So
wow.
It was quite crazy. But you said labor of love. Well, it became a labor of love, and then it started as a project, then became a labor of love, then it became a real love-hate relationship, shall we say. So
yeah, I
get that.
I think that everybody who does anything that they're passionate about, you have this, you're passionate, and then there's that moment of like what? I mean, we have on our tour traveling full time, and then there's moments when you just want to why are we doing this?
Labor of love.
You know you're there, and you wake up the next morning, maybe have a really good glass of wine or 2 or 3, and then you say, I'm in it. But there is a love-hate portion that happens whenever you really get into it. You're in it. I don't know what it is, but isn't it with anything? Whether you're opening a restaurant, whether you're, on tour as a musician, I don't know what it is, but whenever you have that labor of love and that passion, there's that turning point where you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Well, yeah, it's not about the project. It's about kicking yourself
to go forward.
Kick yourself forward or kick yourself backwards. Because you're like, what am I doing? This isn't how
we tore the rear. We tore the rear view mirror out and threw it out the door. So on this one, it was nothing but going forward.
Exactly. Yeah,
and,
that's exactly it. That's awesome that you said that because
I totally get that. Because
I think
back all the time, you can't do anything. You're like immobilized by looking back all the time. You're supposed to learn from the past, but you're not supposed to dwell in it. Take a look.
This project, as we move forward, it was pretty amazing when we look at the condition of the building. When we took the project over, it had been empty for over a decade, and the roof had failed, and there was massive damage everywhere. And to sit back now and visit and watch the life back in this building, that's not four-legged and covered in fleas. It's nice to see people enjoying themselves and that sense of community, that sense of gathering, and sense of peace that came. And looking back at the pictures now, I sometimes firmly think we were nuts starting this, but then the other side of the coin is we've now saved something that's
valuable,
well over 100 years old, and hopefully it'll be here for another 100 years.
I want to ask you this on the architecture. I mean, this is beautiful because you go in the rooms, clean, spacious, and I'm going to say super clean. We're in the COVID travel times, and you will wear your mask when you come in, and everybody's obeying every protocol. And when you come upstairs to your room, there's 4 rooms, each named after flowers, I
love that.
I've got the rose room. It's quite lovely. So when you go in, though, the rooms are spacious. They're clean.
Huge.
The way the design is kind of contemporary, but also lets you know it's still of the past. The bathrooms are immaculate. I mean, the real shower. I mean, when we drove up here, we car camp on our way for 2-3 hours. We sleep in a car somewhere weird to get to a forest to do what we need to do our park tour. And by the time we came in here, we looked like hell, literally, walking into the church dome, going, hello, sorry, we're not really that bad. But, man, I really appreciate your shower. You have no idea about how cool your showers are.
Showers are.
Thank you. I mean, everything is just clean, beautiful, immaculate, and so contemporary. We can watch, TV in the elections if you wanted, all that stuff. But that's an amazing thing. But going into that guest experience, Maureen, what is that like? Because I know you're here, you're making the breakfast, which you're an amazing, amazing cook, chef. I mean, you are a culinary goddess of just giving us amazing, that's whole, without all this kind of stuff put in it. You go into whole foods, which I really appreciate. You pay attention to detail about what you're feeding your guests. The experience of that was amazing, just even having a conversation with you. And I don't know. It's just a beautiful, warm experience. But with all this and I need to go back because that's what I was going to say to Bill, the architecture. Sorry, I'm just all like happy about here. Can I just say that? I'm happy here. Bill, go back to the architecture. I want to go back to the breakfast and the guest experience with Maureen, but Bill, the architecture, this is it. You're in this almost contemporary room, but it's not 100% contemporary. It is in a building that's historic. But then when you go downstairs, it's like, hell yes, this is completely historic. When you look from the outside, it almost reminds me of the Leonard at Logan House Bed and Breakfast that we stayed in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is a brownstone house. Yet this is partially Queen Anne Victorian. What would you call it? I mean, what is this in regards to architecture?
The original building was Queen Anne, and we kept the character. We replicated and redid trim work and plaster work and beadboard ceilings that were originally there, and where they were severely damaged and had to be replaced. We replaced them by having period material reproduced for us so that we could reinstall it. And then in this big sanctuary addition, which was done in 1908, it's actually an arts and crafts style. And outside, it's a real mesh between the two buildings. The simpler style and the arts and crafts on the main sanctuary, and then the accent shingles for the Queen Anne that were actually in that transition period between those two styles of architecture, and they just blend really well together with the stone base and the cedar shake shingles above.
Wow, it's different. It's like Nancy, we haven't done a B&B like this ever. It's different.
No,
that's what's so cool. It's unique. So let's go to exactly where I was going to: the food, the guest experience. Maureen, where did this come from for you to be so good at food and people?
Whoa, where did it come from? My mom loved sharing food, and she loved bringing people together. So I spent pretty much my childhood watching my mom entertain and bring people together through her table. Even my girlfriends in high school, they were always excited to come to dinner. We just always had a traditional around the table kind of dinner where everybody sat and talked, and she cooked every day for us. And so it was just kind of in my being, and I always thought that was normal. And pretty much I've now learned that that's just not normal at all. People don't sit and enjoy one another's company. So when we were planning the interior, we purposely did not put any electronic entertainment other than the ability to have music in the main area. So there's no television, nothing that you can come down and then completely zone out. If people want to watch TV, we have smart TVs in all the rooms, and they're hooked to a cable, and you can dial up your Netflix, and you can completely come on vacation and disappear if you want to do that. But when you come down, pre-COVID, we had magnificent gatherings, which will happen again, and that's where people join together in the morning and can have some fabulous conversations. I remember one time Bill came back. He just popped in around 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning when he was out running around on other jobs, and everyone was still at the big counter. So pre-COVID, everyone actually sat at the counter side by side, and we visited while I cooked, and they talked and visited together. Very cool experience, and it was funny because that morning he came in and he kind of looked at me. He's like, "You're still at breakfast?" I said, "Well, it's been a very lively conversation. We had guests in from England and Michigan and Florida and somewhere else, Louisiana, I think. So we had people from different corners of the world, and I don't know if it was the building or just the amazing guests we had, but there was truly civil discourse happening. Not everyone agreed, but everyone politely stated their point of view.
Cool.
And
yeah, they want their breakfast. If you
well,
argue,
and you don't
no
get
breakfast.
to experience that much anymore because now it seems like people just jump to being upset with one another as opposed to listening to one another.
That I totally agree with that because I want to know why people think the way they think. Because I think if the more you travel, the more you understand that people come from different places with different viewpoints, and that's really interesting to me. It's not offensive; it's interesting. I want to know. And once you start talking to them and you find out why they think the way they think, you think, well, if I came from there, I might think the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have to get angry. You can just, oh, okay, I get that point of view. And because this is one thing in our travels, we are such a big country that is understandable to have so many diverse opinions and really deep seated emotions about things. Europe is tiny countries compared. We're like, I mean, we're just huge, and we have so many different climates. It's so many different backgrounds. It's not surprising we have so many different opinions.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing we've learned. It's like not opinions, but also traditions and lifestyles.
Yeah.
We're all connected in this big country, and I think now we're not seeing as many European guests or international guests come, but because of what's happened with COVID, but Americans are traveling in a very safe capacity. And so we're having these conversations, and in the bed and breakfast, it may be you're sitting at a table like 6 feet away from the other couple at breakfast, right? Is that what happens for you, Maureen, right now with you guys here?
Right.
Because you've got such, I mean, your kitchen, living room, breakfast area is like massive with all kinds of area.
Yeah, Bill would have to correct me, but I think it's probably like 2,500 square feet. So we can definitely social distance in the breakfast area.
People could live in that area. You could put 2 dwellings in there, you know.
So, like the table where you sat this morning, there's a great story, and I'll let Bill explain the table that you sat at, and you'll have to look at it more carefully later on. But
cool.
that table is 18 feet long, and the reason why we have an 18-foot table is right back to that let's gather around one table. So if there's just 10 of us or 8 guests plus me, we can gather very comfortably at the counter. But if we have a little bit larger group, we wanted a place where everyone could be gathering together, and you don't have to have the kid table off in another room. So when you have an 18-foot table, it comfortably seats 20 to 24, depending on the size of the guest, but we can put up to 24 people around the table. It gets a little loud when you have 24 people around the table, but at the same time...
Well, that's just your family.
This is true.
You haven't met ours yet.
Good one.
Yeah, that is just my family, which kind of precipitated the table. It's like, how can we just get everyone together?
I love it. But restaurants got into that mode where everybody was at the community table. And I love that. When the community table happened, people got to understand different cultures, different people, different, whether it's a traveler coming in or a local resident. Like, it was like, these community tables of food precipitated conversation, and I think it's great. But even though you can distance people at that table, and down below you have another table.
Right, I have another table.
And I know we all will just. There's no way you're not going to say, "Hey, how do you like your shortbread or whatever is having what we're having for breakfast this morning?" By the way, everybody, homemade sausage, apple maple
really
syrup
good.
sausage with, oh my gosh, sweet potato planks. Like, you're not going to believe this meal with eggs. She does eggs like you wouldn't believe. now if you got we've got it all filmed. You'll see it later. But incredible breakfast. Who's not going to yell at the other table like, "Are you enjoying the breakfast as much as me?" You know, it's awesome.
Well, I have to say, as a person who I'm like, if you say vegetable, I'm running out the door.
The only way to give nasty vegetables is through Bloody Marys.
Yeah. No, seriously. And I enjoyed every bite. So I kudos to you because I really, and I have to say, as we're trading around going to different B&Bs as opposed to other places to eat, that I am learning to enjoy vegetables, which I really, as a kid on up, and I'm not any longer a kid, I'm kind of a big kid. I didn't think I'd ever say that I actually like vegetables now. And I'm like even cringing as I say it.
And it's even at breakfast. If you're thinking bed and breakfast, we're talking breakfast. But hello, Maureen, you guys serve dinner. I mean, we're going to come down and see you in a little bit here. You guys serve dinner. You have special packages. Is that something that came from COVID or that you always offered?
I've always offered it, but we have such amazing restaurants just within a mile of here. Many are well, if you can walk a mile, then you can walk to dinner, which we encourage. If you walk to dinner, then you can also get dessert and not feel as guilty on your way back because you are exercising it off. But we have some really amazing independently owned restaurants. And so when guests came, they wanted to sample and try so many of the choices. But right now we have sometimes, depending on the restrictions, we could have as few as 25% occupancy, which doesn't allow too many people in a small family restaurant. So we have had a lot more people ordering our evening packages, which we call host dinners. As with all food here, you are interviewed to find out your real likes and preferences, any allergies or really special diets that you must follow. And then I call it chef's choice. I take everything you've said and told me about what you like to eat, what you like to experience, and then I pick the menu and create the meal. And so we have 2-course meals and 3-course meals available for as an add-on package. And
Very
we've served a lot of them this year. We've had a lot of add-on.
Happy hour package too. When we see it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is happy hour. So like this is normally our happy hour show. So I'm going to ask you a special happy hour question before you guys go. But I know it's coming because you know what? It's happy hour. Wednesday, hump day, everybody needs happy hour. And right now we don't know who's winning the election, so everybody needs happy hour, But you have a happy hour package too. So what happens with that?
Well, the happy hour package is, I just call it my enhanced happy hour, and we have people who enjoy a glass of wine or a beer, but some people do not drink alcohol, so we have a selection of sparkling waters and herbal teas and other things that hopefully we can find something that in our selection that you can enjoy. And then we usually put out I have a list of different items that we keep in the inn. For the most part, we usually have at least 4 to 6 cheeses available and some type of sausage. We also have nuts and olives and dried fruits, different crunchy, savory things. And then we kind of put it on a beautiful cheese and board, and we just call that our enhanced happy hour. So it's something to be shared with a traveling partner.
It's wonderful because you got the downstairs space, but you also have all these patios. You have a downstairs patio, you have upstairs patios, depending on the room that you're in, and so for people to enjoy that, it's wonderful. Bill, I want to go back to the table. What's up with the 18-foot table? I'm not forgetting that.
Yes.
I know it may be happy hour, but I'm not forgetting anything.
Yeah, haven't had a chance at the happy hour yet. The originally, whenever the older portion of this building did not have a basement under it. So when we were doing the renovation work, we excavated out underneath the basement, underpinned and stabilized the foundations. And when we did that, we put in new steel beams and steel columns, and some of the old wood beams that had been sitting directly on the dirt, the ends of them were all deteriorated, but there were still some sections left. So I repurposed most of the big heavy timbers and used them to make the base of my big large dining table, which is up on the altar.
Wow.
And so the heavy timbers that are holding up the table are probably based upon the age we had on the trees. Some of them are 400 years old. And then when we pull the chairs out, it's a 3-bay trestle table, so it looks like a big giant altar, and the spirit for those that are the Christian faith. I mean, it's the kind of symbolic of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's put it that way.
We can drink wine on that. Yes. That's good. Yes. Maureen, do you get a lot of people coming back because of the congregations that came here? And in that, I want to go back to the STL in your name, Tuxedo-Park STL Bed and Breakfast Inn. The STL, is that going back to the original, sanctuary that it was for the neighborhood?
No, STL is really for St. Louis, because after we started naming it, we realized there was a Tuxedo Park, New York. And if you type Tuxedo Park into a web browser, it automatically took you to New York.
Yes, it does.
So I needed an STL is just shorthand for St. Louis.
Okay. Because I started giving it all these names. But this is me. I just start creating names instead of looking at the obvious. That's all the wine that we drink. But no, because I was thinking of sanctuary and everything, because it feels like a sanctuary here. It does, So, but when you think about you've had different congregations over the years here, right?
Yes, we've had the very first, so when the building was first conceived, it was really a community gathering space. And so multiple small denominations of various Christian denominations shared the space. But that was very difficult for groups to do. They also had to determine what children would learn, and they couldn't come to an agreement. So the largest group at that time was a musically oriented Disciples of Christ group, and they bought out the other investors and then went on to continue to raise money and build the big sanctuary, which they then referred to as their sanctuary. Up to then, they had called it an auditorium. And then they stayed. They bought land on the other side of Webster-Groves and built a much larger facility. They have a lot of land over there. So they have a church, a schoolhouse. They have a gymnasium, meeting rooms. It's a very big facility. It's a very active congregation still to this day. And so then they sold. And off the top of my head right now, I can't remember who bought in 54. But there was another group that bought in 54, and then they stayed until the mid to late 60s. And then a group called the Chinese Gospel Church had begun in a little storefront somewhere in the city. And then when this building came up on the market, they bought it, and then they expanded their congregation and had a very lively, active group of people. Around 1970, they were just a thriving group. Their pastor lived in the building and raised his children here. There are neighbors who still say, we played with the lives when they lived there. And they've now since come back to visit. They're in California these days, but they come back often. And then we had a lot of people who were going to be celebrating a 50th birthday, 50th wedding anniversary, and they wanted to come back back to where it started, where their either infant baptism was or their wedding. And we had several things going on the books pre-COVID, and we're just now delaying those. So unfortunately right now a big celebration can't happen here, but they'll be back.
But it's interesting. It's really, really interesting, I believe. Like when you think, through religion, there's been all these wars over the years, yet here it feels like a sanctuary. Like I said in the beginning, that's why I thought the STL is like sanctuary. I just went there in my mind, and having stayed here a night and spent time with you, and it is like a sanctuary. And it's obviously also religiously, ethnically diverse of the people that have come through this beautiful building. And I think when you feel that comfort and you feel like you're in a sanctuary, yet you can still drink wine, everyone, and have a good time and giggle. It's so when I say sanctuary, like you don't have to be a monk to be here. I think that's a beautiful thing, and I think it's a beautiful thing for the building to go forward in life, but also for everyone that comes here, that they have that just beautiful moment of peace here. It's beautiful, it really is. So, what you guys have done is amazing. It really is. I mean, you walk around this, you can see every little detail that went into making this what it is today as a bed and breakfast is amazing. The attention to detail. I'm like, even when you sit on the toilet, you look and go, "Wow, they did this." Sorry. But,
well, righty then.
Well, no, it's true. I mean, I'm just saying. You look out and you're like, "Wow, they did this. Look at the flooring. Look at this." It is really well. No, that's a true fact. Come on, everybody spends time there. Sorry, but the bathrooms are beautiful.
Lisa's toilet podcast.
I could do a podcast in the toilet. I could. So I want to ask about, our happy hour question, which I didn't think we'd get into, but we should.
Yeah,
because Missouri has amazing wine. So and Bill, you're getting nailed first because you did all this beautiful work here. So you're getting it first. So if you could spend happy hour with anyone, alive or past, think about who you want to just sit and pick their brains. I know you both have traveled overseas, lived overseas. You've been around the block. You guys know stuff.
Cool.
So who do you want to spend time with? It could be someone personal, family member, whoever.
Or historical.
Yeah.
Library.
Who do you want to spend time with for
at
one happy hour? Where would you spend it? We're hoping it would be still in Missouri, but whatever. It's up to you.
No, it could be anywhere, Lisa.
And what are you going to drink? And what are you going to drink? And what are you going to talk about?
Well, I think I would say that.
He's off. He's off and running.
Well, I think that the one that I like spending the most time with is Maureen, of course. And any time that I can spend an hour out of our crazy busy day with her, it's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. And there are several people that come to mind that I would like to have join us. Of course,
you're allowed. We're guests in your home. You're allowed to bring them. Bring them. Let them bring them. Bring the party.
Well, one of them would be just Thomas Merton, the monk. He's wrote the Seven-Story Mountain.
Oh, he's so amazing.
And just to have him sit across and recount life and trials and tribulations and things you go through. And I really, as far as I just really love where we are. It's just very comfortable, very peaceful, and promotes conversation as far as the way I feel about things. So
upper, lower deck, or in the the big living
probably
space?
gathering around the big kitchen island, because
to
to me that's gathering around the hearth, and it's all about sharing and breaking bread and being part of the event.
Now, are you having wine, or what are you going to drink?
Oh, good Lord, yes. Probably a Côte d'Aron if I had to guess. But
okay. Now, listen. The kitchen wraps around. It's round. So,
it's
when we lived in South Africa, there was roundhouses. There were rondavels and huts and everything, right? But there's something magical about when a building goes around. What's it like designing and working and constructing and remodeling round spaces? Is that a pain in the butt?
Well, no, it's Maureen came up with the design, and I made it work, of course. because if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah.
But the we have done a lot of projects that have curved walls, and it's just one has to think in a nonlinear fashion. That's all.
In Africa, everything
that's
built
my brain.
round, and I don't. Everything in Africa is built round, because they believe that there's two sides to that. Maybe they couldn't do square; it was harder. I don't know, but they believe that if you did corners, then evil spirits could hide in the corners. So if you do round, there's no evil spirits because there's no corners. Which I often think about that. Who's hiding in the corners? Yeah. No,
see, this is just a few days after Halloween.
I know. No, but it is. No, it's an interesting concept. That you think a spirit can hide in a corner and not in midair. I don't know.
Oh, and there's a warm feeling. When it's a rounded room, it feels more relaxing. There's something natural. I don't know how primitive it is. I think there is a primitive thing for us humans to think of cave days or whatever, but there's something cool about it being rounded. And I just wondered because you have a whole kitchen in a rounded space. That's a whole thing. It's amazing.
But it's almost like embracing. It's almost like hugging or embracing, particularly with the way the island mirrors the outside curved wall, so that it forms, and there's like a real gathering, almost like somebody reaching out their arms and hugging you. So.
Oh, I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I love that the energy doesn't run into a block wall and bounce off it. Go, where am I now?
Circular energy lives on forever, right? That's the whole thing, the circle of life. And I don't know, we keep talking about the circle of life here. It keeps happening.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. That's the second time today I've said that, circle of life. And it is happening here. And I think what you're doing with not just this building and being, in architecture and taking care of historic properties, I don't have a hat on my head, but if I would give you a top hat bow, because I really appreciate that, because we have to save these stories and save what I appreciate it so much. So thank you for that, Bill. Really happy hour toast to you for that. But Maureen, it is time for your happy hour. Who are you going for? I know Bill's there, so we know that, but who are you going for happy hour with? Bill?
It's crazy. Yeah,
because you have to behave yourself.
when he was talking, I'm like, well, we're always trying to figure out how to spend more time together. So I'm like, definitely Bill's going with me wherever I'm going.
Cool.
Because we just really, I don't know if we've ever really gone any place on planet Earth that we say to ourselves, I really wish we hadn't done this. And so.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just
that
one
you say
person. That is a tough one.
Pick one. You can do whatever you want. We don't care.
Well, to just be really crazy, Leonardo.
Yes.
I think he was probably a pretty out there kind of guy, but how fascinating to find, what makes you tick? How did you come up with all this stuff?
And he has one of the oldest grapevines in the world that made wine. One of the most ancient grape. He could have been.
He's my idol. Like a man for all seeds, and his brain must have been split into compartments. Now I'm thinking this, now I'm thinking that, and he was so ahead of his time. Wow.
Yeah. So he would be just kind of fun. And then, gosh, if we're visiting with him, I can think of any number of places in Italy I'd probably like to plop back down into at this moment. We had a magical experience in Italy. We were traveling with our oldest child, our daughter, and her soon-to-be husband and his family, and we just...
Oh, you're checking him out, huh?
Well, yeah, we saw how he was going to do. Yeah, we had his mom and dad and grandma went with us, and we had some other friends. So we just had a blast. We rented a little cabin, not a cabin. It was an 800-year-old home in Umbria.
That's insane.
Cool.
That's insane right there. 800 years.
It was pretty insane, and some of the pieces felt like 800 years old, and others were modernized.
Oh, wow.
But we were, in the kind of the Tuscan hill country. Umbria is just south of Tuscany, and so we would spend just visiting the villages and the vineyards and tasting wine, and
That's cool.
we basically just ate and drank for 2 weeks, to be perfectly honest, and put
Cool.
a lot of steps on
I
our
like it.
pedometers.
Well, you can eat and drink if you can do that, But that's,
yeah, we
that's amazing. So you go through those experiences traveling. Did you ever think you'd become an innkeeper?
I never really we had talked about it, but we never wanted to be in a remote location. We like what the city offers as far as, we want to go to theater or we want to go to something. It's just right here at our fingertips. So we kind of dismissed the idea because I didn't want just a traditional house. I said, if we're ever going to do this, it's just going to have to be something completely out there, which I think is why this building jumped out at me. It's like, now there you go. That is something so unusual.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
But I know that I did want to become an innkeeper at some point. I did spend a lot of time in little inns when I was single and living in Europe. So I felt very safe going to an inn as a single female. And usually the families would kind of treat me as just another family member. And so we'd have long conversations around their dinner tables, and I would get to know about them and learn a little bit about what makes them tick. And so I kind of loved that about it. So
with
let
this
me
happy hour. No, we time wise. We got to get moving.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nancy, but quick.
No, I was just going to ask you.
She's a mama.
Talking to people like that. Do you find even though they're like in a different country, that we're all kind of the same, or are we radically different? What do you think?
No, we all are the same. We want our children to be safe and secure and loved, and we want to experience life and have friends and a fulfilling career. And honestly, it just has, no matter where I meet a person, we really do have the same innate desires.
Cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. You're going with Leonardo, and you're going to have happy hour with him, Bill, your family. Everyone's going to be there. Are you going to do it in Italy, or are you where are you having it, and what are you
it's
drinking?
going to have to be in Italy, but boy, it's a toss-up. There's just so many cool places, and I loved Tuscany, but I haven't gotten to see other regions in Italy, too. So I know there's a whole southern area, like the little Boot Heel part. I haven't been down there. So, gosh, I'm thinking this happy hour is in a yet-to-be-known place.
Well, Venice is a great memories for us because that's where my son-in-law proposed to my daughter.
Ooh, cool.
They did.
So Venice and then wine. I'm going to say you're going to have wine, right?
Oh, it will be wine, absolutely.
Yeah, and can we go get it from his vineyard? Because I want to come. I'm going to go squeeze Leonardo's grapes. That sounds terrible, but I do. But you have to read. No, oh my gosh, I have to go find out the name again. No, but he really has one of the most ancient vineyards, and then Lebanon has even more of the ancient vineyards of our wines. It's really fascinating where our wines really come from. And I don't know. So thank you, Jesus, for taking wine and making it into water. Water into wine. Excuse me. I got it right. I got it right there. But there you go. I think it's awesome. It's wine time. It's all good. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you for hosting us. And, you can already tell we're silly. So we'll see you downstairs in a little bit.
Okay. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Everybody, again,
Bye-bye.
You've got to come out. You've got to come out to the B&B here. Again, it's Tuxedo Park STL Bed and Breakfast. So go to tuxedoparkstl.com and stay tuned. We've got more coming up about St. Louis. It's super cool out here.
I love it.